Greetings from Wisdom Words, a peaceful place to pause and reflect. One story at a time, we examine timeless teachings about life, serenity, and purpose here. So, pause, inhale, and let's get started. Realizing that someone we cared for deeply never loved us in the same manner is a terrible reality that many of us encounter at some point in our lives. This awareness can come as a gentle wave, first imperceptible, then overwhelming, regardless of the relationship, friendship, love, or even close family. It hurts, too, profoundly. First and foremost, you should realize that this pain is typical. It is a normal reaction to unbalanced situations, unfulfilled expectations, and the human need for reciprocity. When we put our time, effort, and souls into someone, we naturally want them to feel the same way. It might be startling when that hope collides with reality. One young woman I knew had dedicated years to what she thought was a connection that was reciprocal. She supported them through their hardships, rejoiced in their victories, and was always there for them. She eventually noticed a trend: the support was rarely given back. Messages remained unacknowledged, invitations were turned down, and her personal hardships were ignored. Although the realization was devastating, it marked a sea change. She realized that her value was independent of other people's love or attention. And she discovered a silent, tenacious strength in that comprehension. We now arrive at the first lesson, which is acceptance. In actuality, not everyone will treat us with the same level of concern that we show them. And that speaks to their abilities, priorities, and emotional availability rather than your worth. Yes, it hurts to accept this fact, but it also frees you. It enables you to shift your energy away from expectations and toward people who genuinely care about you. Understanding emotional investment is another learning. We frequently offer more than is healthy in the hopes of receiving the same love, care, or kindness in return. Prior to the hurt becoming unbearable, awareness entails identifying the balance or imbalance. It entails identifying trends, focusing on deeds rather than words, and having enough self-worth to safeguard your emotional health. This is aptly demonstrated in a narrative. For more than a year, a man had been in a relationship. He believed that the partnership was one of equal effort and love. Subtle clues started to emerge over time. He was always the one making compromises, sending messages, and starting preparations. He eventually came to the realization that there was a significant imbalance. The effort and attention were not reciprocated. Although there was no denying the hurt, the lesson was obvious: his emotional energy was valuable, and he should be treated with the same respect. Even though it was unpleasant, the discovery gave him the strength to take a step back, think things through, and eventually decide on healthier relationships. The significance of boundaries is another important realization. We have the chance to set boundaries when we acknowledge that someone does not share our level of concern. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and clarity, not of rage or retribution. They make room for recovery, development, and fresh relationships that better suit our emotional requirements. Take a moment to think about the times in your own life when you gave more than you got back. What impact has that imbalance had on your happiness, feeling of self-worth, or general well-being? What limits could you set to respect your own feelings while remaining nice and compassionate? The people we care about might not always return the favor, and love, care, and attention are not always equal. This is a fact of human variability, not a sign of your failure. The lesson here is discernment, figuring out who genuinely appreciates your concern and presence and who doesn't. Having discernment enables you to allocate your energy effectively, build relationships that support you, and let go of people that deplete you. A young woman once discovered that her spouse seemed unconcerned with her sentiments, seldom remembered her significant life events, and seldom ever made time for her. At first, she blamed herself, questioning whether she was overly sensitive or demanding. But as time went on, she became aware of the pattern, the absence of reciprocity, the persistent apathy, and came to terms with the fact that he did not share her concern. Although the pain was excruciating, it was also freeing. She discovered how to respect herself, establish limits, and make investments in relationships that made her feel good. Self-compassion as a means of healing is another crucial learning. It's normal to internalize the hurt, doubt your value, or feel rejected when someone doesn't care as much as you do. However, self-compassion serves as a reminder that your worth is not determined by the love or attention of others. It enables you to take care of yourself, accept your feelings, and progressively get over the hurt by treating yourself with kindness. Now take a moment. Consider a relationship in which there was unequal caring. Give yourself permission to feel the grief without passing judgment. Even if this understanding is painful, it can serve as a springboard for personal development, self-awareness, and increased emotional resilience. Acknowledge that your feelings are real and that the imbalance is not your fault. Growth through perspective is the chapter's last lesson. The pain of knowing someone never gave you the same level of attention will eventually subside. You will learn patience, self-respect, and discernment from the experience. You will realize that each heart you meet merely reflects its own capabilities and does not measure you. And you find serenity in that comprehension. Think again, how has your perspective on relationships changed as a result of realizing unequal care? What self-awareness, self-control, and love investment lessons have you learned? How could accepting these realizations help you make future interactions that are more mutually beneficial? Realizing that someone never cared as much as you do hurts. Deep learning, however, can be gained in that suffering, the understanding that your love is priceless, that your caring is worthy of reciprocity, and that you possess the fortitude to leave unbalanced relationships and pursue ones that follow your heart. The pain is not in vain. It molds, teaches, and eventually gets you ready to be appreciated, loved, and seen as you deserve. You've probably already experienced the weight of that unpleasant reality. Occasionally, the people we care about and put our souls into just don't feel the same way. Even though the first anguish may seem insurmountable, it contains lessons about emotional development, limits, and self-respect. The first lesson is to completely process your feelings. It can be tempting to repress the hurt, behave as though it doesn't exist, or divert our attention with activities when we learn someone never cared as much. However, genuine recovery starts when we honestly accept and experience the feelings, disappointment, grief, and even rage. Suppressing them merely makes pain worse. We can begin to let go of the emotions by sitting with them, naming them, and comprehending them. I recall a man from a long-standing acquaintance that was obviously one-sided. He spent months trying to explain her actions, offered justifications, and persuade himself that he was exaggerating. He finally gave himself permission to feel the pain, the silent isolation, the annoyance, and the feeling of being invisible. He found clarity in that candor. He could now consciously decide whether to keep engaging in the friendship after realizing how draining it was. Setting limits is another lesson. Acknowledging unequal treatment is a call to safeguard your mental and physical well-being. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not a form of punishment. They enable you to actively participate in relationships, offering when it seems right and withdrawing when it feels bad. Setting boundaries helps you avoid overcommitting to someone who might never return the favor and makes room for stronger relationships. Think of a young woman who made an effort to stay in touch with her spouse by reaching out to them frequently. Rarely did he acknowledge her sentiments, seldom did he reply, and seldom did he return the effort. It was draining. She established firm limits after realizing the imbalance. She would no longer pursue, over-explain, or jeopardize her well-being in order to keep the relationship going. Yes, the change was hard, but it was also freeing. She recovered her vitality, self-esteem, and identity. Self-compassion is another crucial learning. It's normal to absorb the hurt and doubt your value when someone doesn't feel the same way about you. However, self-compassion serves as a reminder that your worth is independent of the love and attention of others. It enables you to be nice to yourself, to accept your suffering, and to take care of yourself the way you would like to be treated. Now take a moment. Consider an instance where the care you provided was not returned. Give yourself permission to experience the disappointment without passing judgment. It's acceptable to feel hurt. Tell yourself, just as you would a buddy, I'm not unworthy because of this. I deserve to be cared for since my love is precious. Relationship discernment is another important realization. Inequitable treatment is frequently a hint that you should reconsider where you spend your time and effort. Not all connections are worth the same amount of work. You can give priority to relationships that are healthy, mutual, and nurturing by learning to recognize who genuinely loves your presence and who doesn't. A man once discovered that his longtime colleague constantly claimed credit for his work while providing little assistance in return. He initially put up with it since he thought it was worth keeping the relationship going. He eventually saw the disparity, though, and decided to refocus his efforts by working with just those who truly valued his skills and investing in them. Although the realization was painful, it eventually made room for partnerships that were more balanced and meaningful. Accepting independence is an additional lesson. We could feel unfulfilled, nervous, or in need of approval when someone doesn't share our feelings. However, these experiences lead us to discover our own fullness. Instead of relying exclusively on validation from others, we learn to develop inner resilience, nurture our own needs, and trust our own judgment. Quietly consider how the awareness of unequal treatment has prompted you to examine yourself, fortify your identity, and put your own mental health first. How might being independent help you approach relationships in the future with confidence and clarity? And lastly, perspective-based healing. The pain of receiving unequal treatment lessens with time. We start to view the experience as a teaching tool for identifying patterns, developing self-worth, and comprehending human limitations rather than as a reflection of our shortcomings. In a way, those who never showed the same level of concern are our teachers. They teach us what we are worthy of, what we will not put up with, and what it means to respect ourselves. Give it some more thought. How might this experience help you value your own heart, prioritize caring for others, and create healthy expectations? Knowing that your love is valuable and deserving of return, what insight can you bring to your next relationship? Although it is unavoidably painful to realize that they never cared as much, it is also a life-changing experience. It imparts perspective, independence, self-compassion, boundaries, and discernment. In addition to learning how to safeguard our hearts, these lessons teach us how to build relationships that value our contributions, respect our worth, and show reciprocity for our caring. You may have already experienced the subtle, lingering pain of knowing that someone you held in the highest regard did not share your sentiments. This insight frequently results in a mixture of sadness, perplexity, and even rage. However, there are lessons about attachment, release, and emotional fortitude buried in this suffering. Grief navigation is the first lesson. When a relationship falls short of our expectations, it's normal to feel sad. The loss of reciprocal care is a type of emotional loss, regardless of the relationship, be it friendship, love, or family. Give yourself permission to grieve for both the current and desired versions of the partnership. Grief is a natural element of the healing process and is not a sign of weakness. I recall a young lady who thought her friendship would last a lifetime. After realizing that her buddy had never put out the same amount of effort as she had, she offered presence, attention, and support. It was a sad moment of recognition. She experienced confusion, betrayal, and grief. She was able to release attachment, comprehend her own needs, and ultimately create room for more genuine, reciprocal relationships by letting herself grieve completely. Letting go of attachment is another lesson. We could cling to hope, nostalgia, or memories of what we hoped the relationship could be when someone never cared as much as we did. Although it's hard, letting go is necessary. Attachment prolongs pain, keeps us bound to imbalance, and inhibits us from really embracing those who will respect our care. Release is accepting truth and going on with clarity, not forgetting. A man who had made significant financial investments in a romantic connection is the subject of a narrative. He believed it to be reciprocal, but as time went on, it became clear that he was providing, compromising, and hoping constantly, while his companion stayed aloof and uninterested. Slowly, during quiet times of introspection and self-examination, the release occurred. Although it hurt to let go, he was able to gather his strength, concentrate on his development, and eventually look for partnerships where his love would be reciprocated. Finding serenity by self-validation is another important realization. It can be easy to look for outside validation, proof that your work and affection mattered, when someone doesn't share your feelings. But when you believe in yourself, you can find long-lasting peace. Regardless of how they are accepted, your love, care, and attention are valuable in and of themselves. By realizing this, you promote emotional stability and resilience by changing the source of confirmation from an external to an internal one. Now take a moment to yourself. Think back to a time in your life when you looked to someone who didn't genuinely care as much for approval. In order to respect your own value and your ability to love, how may you channel that energy inward? Choosing clarity over illusion is another lesson. A veil of hope, conflicting messages, or emotional inconsistency are frequently produced by those who never show reciprocal care. Gaining the ability to see clearly and recognize patterns without denying them is a significant step toward liberation. Clarity enables you to leave relationships that no longer support your emotional health and make decisions based on truth rather than hope or fear. Think of a woman who maintained a friendship over considerable distances, constantly expecting that her buddy would return her calls, messages, and invitations. She eventually came to understand that her friend's lack of interest was deliberate and persistent. She was able to quit chasing, focus her energies on relationships where caring was reciprocated, and develop a sense of serenity she had never known while holding on to optimism thanks to the clarity she had learned. Developing emotional resilience is another crucial learning. Being treated unfairly puts your emotional fortitude to the test. It teaches you how to absorb hurt, deal with failure, and love without changing who you are. Comfort is not the foundation of resilience, rather, it is created through difficulty, introspection, and the deliberate decision to put your own heart first while negotiating imbalance. Think quietly, how has receiving uneven treatment affected your ability to bounce back emotionally? What inequalities have surfaced from these uncomfortable times, and how may they help you navigate relationships in the future? And lastly, discernment has wisdom. When someone doesn't care as much, it's a clue to assess where your affection and effort are being directed. Relationships that are loving, reciprocal, and consistent with your ideals should be given priority, as discernment suggests. It promotes self-compassion, bravery in letting go, and discernment in selecting relationships that are true to your heart. Pause for a moment. Who in your life has exhibited unequal care patterns? How may developing discernment help you look for better relationships, make thoughtful heart investments, and approach love with awareness rather than expectation? Unquestionably, it hurts to realize that they never cared as much as you did. However, there is power, clarity, and progress within that suffering. To turn grief into wisdom, you can grieve, let go of attachment, validate yourself, observe clearly, develop resilience, and exercise discernment. You learn from the experience not only about other people but also about your own heart, its worth, its ability to love, and its ability to gracefully deal with imbalance. By this time, the quiet aching that remains after the first shock has subsided may feel familiar, the sorrow of knowing that someone never cared the same way. However, at this point, the emphasis moves from acknowledgement to recovery, letting go, and taking back your emotional vitality. This is where change starts, and the lessons learned from unequal care are turned into instruments for empowerment and personal development. Respecting your emotions without passing judgment is the first lesson. When you discover that someone did not return your care, it's normal to have feelings of guilt, shame, or self-doubt. However, all of your emotions are real. Give yourself permission to feel depressed, disappointed, or even angry. These feelings are indicators; they lead you to comprehension, introspection, and ultimately, resolution. Ignoring or suppressing them just makes the healing process take longer. I have a story about a woman who gave her all to a romantic connection only to discover that the care was not reciprocated. She initially made an effort to hide her pain under bustle and smiles, acting as though nothing was wrong. However, the unresolved pain only became more intense. She felt a deep feeling of release when she at last gave herself permission to feel completely, acknowledging the sorrow, disappointment, and loss. Her feelings turned into a compass that helped her make better decisions and appreciate herself. Letting go of attachment is another crucial lesson. We remain bound to imbalance when we cling to someone who never showed us the same level of concern. It keeps us from accepting what is possible elsewhere while extending our hope for what may have been. Although it can be challenging, letting go does not mean deleting sentiments or memories. It's about embracing reality, releasing yourself from emotional overinvestment, and concentrating on mutually beneficial relationships. There is a tale about a man who found it difficult to let go of a friend who continuously disregarded his needs. Reliving happy memories and seeing a different friendship, he held on to the hope that things might change. He eventually came to the realization that waiting was keeping him from making investments in those who genuinely appreciated him. Although letting go was difficult, it made room for more meaningful and profound relationships. Regaining your time and energy is another lesson. Your emotional, mental, and occasionally even physical resources are depleted when you continue to engage with someone who does not share your level of concern. By recognizing this imbalance, you can refocus your energy on yourself, those who value your care, and pursuits that foster your development and well-being. Think for a moment, in what areas of your life do you give more than you receive? In what ways may reclaiming your energy help you develop, heal, and refocus your heart on the people who really deserve it? Another essential element in the healing process is self-compassion. It is simple to internalize the hurt, place the responsibility on oneself, or feel unworthy when receiving unequal treatment. However, self-compassion serves as a reminder that your value is independent of other people's behavior. You can start to regain equilibrium and build your emotional resilience by being kind to yourself, acknowledging your emotions, and providing yourself with the care you need. Think about a woman whose partner didn't always show her love or effort. At first, she accused herself of being overly demanding or sensitive. She gradually discovered how to treat herself with the same compassion that she had shown him. By recognizing her value, wants, and emotions, she found the strength to let go of the imbalance and concentrate on relationships in which she was cared for in return. Learning and reflection are two more lessons. In addition to being painful, unequal treatment can also be educational. By thinking back on these events, you can spot trends, comprehend your own emotional triggers, and determine what characteristics you really require in a healthy connection. It turns pain into insight and equips you to face future relationships with self-respect, clarity, and confidence. Think for a moment, what tendencies have you observed in partnerships when the level of caring was uneven? Can you apply the lessons you've learned about yourself, your boundaries, or your expectations going forward? How might this introspection help you make future connections that are more balanced and fulfilling? Lastly, there is openness and embracing optimism. Although it hurts to realize that someone didn't care the same way, it also serves as a reminder to adjust. You make room for relationships that are reciprocal, fulfilling, and genuine when you let go, respect your emotions, and take back your energy. Hope is the knowledge that your heart is capable of love and that there are individuals who will completely cherish it. It is not foolish optimism. Consider this once more: how may accepting optimism while maintaining discernment allow you to encounter real connections? In what ways may this understanding improve your capacity to make investments in reciprocal and meaningful relationships? Unquestionably, receiving unequal treatment hurts, but it also teaches valuable skills, such as how to respect your feelings, let go of attachment, recover your energy, be self-compassionate, examine trends, and have hope. By incorporating these teachings, you transition from suffering to resilience, clarity, and the ability to put your heart where it is most needed. We have reached the last chapter, the point at which introspection and change collide. By this point, you've processed your feelings, established boundaries, recovered your energy, and experienced the hurt of knowing that someone never cared as much as you did. Learning to move forward with clarity, self-respect, and an open mind to partnerships that value your heart is the last step. Choosing peace over resentment is the first lesson. Feeling resentment or hatred against someone who does not share your level of concern is normal. However, clinging to these emotions simply makes your pain worse. Choosing peace involves letting go of the burden of unpleasant emotions, not justifying their actions. Instead of carrying the weight, it enables you to continue learning. A man who had dedicated years to a one-sided friendship comes to mind. He felt offended, indignant, and frustrated. But after some introspection and deliberate practice, he made the decision to let go of his grudge. He let go of the emotional grip the incident had on him, but he didn't forget it. This choice eventually resulted in a subtle sensation of inner peace, clarity, and freedom. Accepting oneself in future relationships is another crucial learning. In partnerships, unequal care teaches us to appreciate affection, effort, and respect for one another. You can learn to identify when a connection is unbalanced and when someone is the ideal fit for you by internalizing these teachings. This discernment helps you invest in relationships that are mutually rewarding and keeps you from repeating old behaviors. After dating someone for more than a year, a woman once discovered that the effort was never reciprocated. At first, she blamed herself, questioning whether she had been too vulnerable or too giving. However, she came to the realization that her heart deserved reciprocity after some time, introspection, and self-compassion. She was able to pursue partners who shared her level of care, set higher standards, and ultimately find deeper, more meaningful love as a result of this realization. Another essential component of going on is forgiveness. Forgiveness is about releasing yourself from emotional bonds, not about accepting cruelty or apathy. You may carry the knowledge you've received without being burdened by bitterness when you forgive. It's a present to yourself, a step toward maturity and emotional independence. Think for a moment, is there someone you need to forgive for your own peace of mind, not for them? How might this self-liberation act change your capacity to go on and have more balanced, healthy relationships? Practicing thankfulness for the lesson is another crucial lesson. Realizing that someone never cared the same way is painful, but the experience teaches self-awareness, perseverance, and discernment. Every instance of imbalance is a chance to become more resilient, lucid, and sensitive to your own emotional needs. Although it doesn't take away the suffering, gratitude reframes it as a teaching tool rather than a wound. There is a story of a man who was always the more involved party in a long-term friendship. At first, he felt invisible, hurt, and manipulated. However, after some thought, he realized the importance of what he had learned, how to appreciate his own work, protect his energy, and identify imbalance. He eventually learned to appreciate the clarity it provided and the opportunity to concentrate on relationships that were genuinely mutual. The last phase is incorporating the learning into everyday life. This calls for early pattern recognition, proactive boundary setting, self-worth validation, and an open and thoughtful approach to future interactions. It's about putting what you've learned into practice so that the pain of the past guides better decisions going forward. Now take a moment to yourself. Think about how you'll apply the lessons you learned about unequal treatment to your future partnerships. How will you nurture relationships that are genuine, loving, and reciprocal while also honoring your heart and safeguarding your energy? There is at last hope for genuine connection. It hurts to realize that someone didn't care the same way you did, but it doesn't imply that you can't find love, companionship, or meaningful relationships. Instead, it equips you to interact with greater emotional intelligence, self-respect, and clarity. Now that you are aware of the importance of your care, you can look for those who share your appreciation. Remember, realizing that they never cared as much as you do hurts, but that hurt may also be a teaching. It builds resilience, teaches you your value, and fortifies your limits. It helps you find connections that honor your heart and teaches you what matters most in relationships. Although the suffering is brief, the lessons learned are lifelong and help you receive the respect, love, and attention you truly deserve.